and center. Okay. Swing the arms, find your center line. Turn your shoulders a bit so you kind of work the lower back. Okay, now get the leg in. Right leg swing. And center. Okay, switch. Other side, we're going to get the center line going and kick the left leg in. So just let it swing freely with like a pendulum, not too physical. And center. Okay, side to side. It's going to go this way. And center. Okay, switch. And center. Okay, shake it out. Hands up. Pull in. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, silk rilling. Okay, step out. And turn. Other side. Okay, open and close. And then turn the hip. You go out, your feet are parallel here, you pivot on the heel of that foot, then you transfer your weight. So all your pivoting is done directionally to set you up. So if you take it down to that level after you've memorized the sequence, you're actually manipulating your joints in the lower half of your body. The fact that our hips turn like this and turn like this is really building a motor skill. Our hips become dysfunctional over time because we built so much strength in them thinking we need strong hips. But the hips should turn. These are ball and socket joints, just like the shoulder has ball and socket. They're designed to go in circles or move, taking you into directions. So that's one of the things that we don't understand totally because we don't know how important that is. But it's important to keep your hips healthy by turning and moving them like this. It happens throughout your form. It happens to take us in directions. So, because this is how we go in this direction, this is how we turn. That's a military term. We use it in marching. We use it in many ways, but that's in the body's upright. So you steer in a direction. So that's the most important thing, when you're doing your stances, is that when you pivot out, if you're in a frontal stance like this and you go forward and back and you pivot out, your foot begins to face the 45, but your hips are part of this. So you have to turn to the corner and then turn to the front. So the hips are part of that directing. So when you do that, you're actually moving sometimes as a active side or sometimes as a passive side. So that all ties to what we call opening and closing. Opening and closing means your joints go in and they go out. Your arms go in and they go out. They go up and they go down. So what it is your joints opening and closing. What is? If this leaves your body, it's opening. If it comes toward the body, it's closing. So that happens in all dimensions of your actions, depending on what you're doing, functionality. So the total concept is to build functionality and movement because we want to approach naturalness in motion. Naturalness in motion is using the joints the way they're designed to move so that your body creates habits of moving your body correctly. Otherwise, if you're always moving in a misaligned way or moving the wrong way, you cause stress on the joint, you cause inflammation, it throws your ligaments and tendons out, and then you injure yourself. And sometimes those injuries stay with you unless your body recovers, or if it's really bad, then it has to be reset or fixed because the ligament could be out, pinching nerves, doing all kinds of things. So every joint in our body is like that. It has, that's why we have a lot of back pain sometimes. So it's because we don't move them correctly. Strengthening is one thing, flexibility the other. They have to balance each other. You can't just have strength, strength, strength. That becomes what we call double weighted, not just in the sense of weighting of the weight in the feet, but the weight between how your body is moving. So when you fold your arm and unfold, that's really a mechanical movement that's driven by balance. If you're like this, there's balance, but it's rigid. So we shouldn't have rigidity in the body during movement because, it's conflict. So if you can understand that concept, when we do our movements, you try to integrate. So even in strum the lute, when we turn the body, it's really creating part of the direction of movement. Now we know this is a drill. So what we're doing in the drill is to find this position on one side, this position, and this position on the other side. That's your right and left vertical elbow. Now we're standing here like this, and we turn, we have that on the left. If we switch sides and we turn, we have this on the right. Right? So those are right-left positions and center positions. Okay, so we don't really look at it as a transition until we start to build the movement. If we start to do this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. What do we build into that movement? Is a mechanism of transitions with phases of movement. For every hand movement, there's a leg movement. For every leg movement, there's a hand movement. So that happens when we go from one posture to another. In order to link our body together, when we move, we're really doing this, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So your target position is this. Your transitional movement is this. So when we move our hands and feet, that's really part of building the sequential memory. And that order becomes important because you have to get to this side. And they're supposed to end together, right? And you end together like this. So when you move, this is what has to happen. So in Jade Lady work shuttle, we go to neutral, and then we turn. So our hands should be moving, but while we're learning it, we learn upper body, the lower body struggles. Once you get your footwork, angular direction, we have to turn the foot, find the direction. You go forward, back, turn, shift, and turn, right? So the upper and the lower body has to build that relationship for the coordination and the continuity. So all that is tied to balance. Because in Tai Chi we have the idea of forward, backward, right, left, and center. Center is central equilibrium. So the forward and back is that. The forward and back is that. When we turn, the forward and back is that. The right and left is that. So the idea to build right and left coordination and central equilibrium is passing through each position for balance, because your body has to know where your center of mass is in order for you to stay balanced. So the whole process of building body intelligence and learning how to build balance. So if it's prescribed for balance improvement, especially seniors that are in their 60s that fall a lot, this is what has to happen. But it takes time and it's a process. So most people don't have the patience and don't have the understanding that this is, as humans, what we have to go through. It's because you had 40 years, maybe 30 years of not moving your body, finding its center. So when it's time to find your center, it seems like an impossible dream, right? You don't know where it is, and you always feel unstable. So that's kind of, the principles and concepts, in the theory. So let's go through the form. So what I just showed you really is the beginning of turning and moving into grasp the sparrow's tail, into brush knee. And, I've shown drills in the past that where you tie those two concepts together and you would work this side with the 180 degrees, do a grasp the sparrow's tail on this side. So we'll do the form, and then if you wanted to go through a couple of those drills, we could do that. But drills are something you have to practice on your own. All right, ready? Preparation. Press forward, sit back, lean forward, shift, slant, change hands, grasp the sparrow's tail. Single whip. Hold the ball. Slant diagonally, shift, step up. Every shift means relax the ankle. Turn, toe heel, right side brush knee, push. So there's a total of 4, so we're going to the right again. Divert, block, and punch. Leopard and tiger springs to mountain. Neutral position, fist under elbow. So there's a transition. So the name of the posture is the end position. Repulse the monkey. Second, repulse the monkey. So it's retreat and repulse the monkey, so it means to step backwards. Hand movements are essentially the same as brush knee. Neutral position, hold the ball, twist out, step through, diagonal flying. Sit back, insert the needle. Step up to fan through the back. Turn, stroke down, parry and punch. Step forward, form the fist. Divert, block, and punch. Cross the arms, leopard and tiger springs to mountain. Carry tiger to the mountain. Cross the arms, raise the hand, left side, bend from the waist, stork flaps wings. Turn. Left side, grasp the sparrow's tail. Left side single whip. Hold the ball. Reverse. Diagonal flying. Sit back, stroke down, part the horse's mane. Step up, neutral, stroke down, part the horse's mane. Sit back, cross over, Jade Lady work shuttle. Sit back, turn, move your hands. Yeah, this is just going to the corners because this is Tai Chi Paradigm. Just 2 Jade Lady work shuttle. Hook your wrist, sink your elbow, turn to the front after you finish that. Come back to center. Open. Cloud hands. Hold the ball. Heel forward, toe around. Reverse the ball to diagonal flying right side. Goes out opposite side. Sit like this. Hands go forward as you sit back. Go to the side and down. And close. So you can see when we hold the ball and we reverse the ball, there's still that relationship of shifting the weight and counterbalancing your movement. There's always an equal opposite relationship in how your body shifts and expands and contracts. But your level of sensitivity has to be at a point where it's ready to adapt that. Because if there's rigidity in the body, it doesn't sense, something as simple as lifting your hand and detecting the fact that your body is actually floating. Because when you lift your hand up, it's heavier over here. So there's a counter action that the body does. Just like if you're leaning like this, the reason why you don't tip over because your back either tenses here stabilize, or your body has shifted backwards. Your hips and your butt actually goes that way in order to find your center here. If you left your butt here and you went like that, you would fall. You would tip. Because the weight distribution is wrong. It's too heavy in the front. You become top heavy and you will fall over. So if you stand against the wall like this, you really can't touch your toes, because your butt will push you away from the wall. If you want to try that at home, you can do that, and you can realize that as soon as you start to bend beyond a certain point, your butt will push into the wall and you start to fall forward. Okay, so anyways, when we're here, if you want to do a drill like this and you pivot and go to this side, here's your sparrow's tail left side. And then if you hook your wrist and you turn toward the front, here's your narrow single whip. That's a shoulder width, just a little bit. And then you turn this way, then you switch to the right side and you do grasp the sparrow's tail. And then you hook your wrist, and then you turn back to here, and then you open and finish movement. So what you're building there are transitions and timing and the idea of what order things move. Now, that's what grasp the sparrow's tail. In brush knee, when we're sitting like this, we turn this way and we would brush knee. Now, typically you would set up and round out, and you would sit back, turn toward your center, then turn again to create the opposite side, and you do a brush knee this way. And then you sit back, then you go forward, and sit back. Instead of going forward, you would just be making the 180-degree turn, right? So that gives you a format to practice the 180-degree turn using 2 phases of the turn. So you're going 90 and 90, and you hit brush knee again. Now if you do the full 180-degree turn, then the front foot has to pivot 135 degrees. And then this might have to adjust a little bit, and you're doing that. So that's the rotation you have when you do the oblique brush knee in the long form. So if you have that movement, or your obliques are not accurate enough in the form, that's what you have to do to make the 180-degree turn. And then, Jade Lady works shuttle, because these are paired postures. If I'm here and I go forward and I go back and I turn 45 degrees, I have my transition. So I turn, right? But the hand has to come to here, right? And then I have to get to the other side. So I turn and I reset to here. So there's where you have to build your transition from this. You come back, you hear 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now you realize how important it is to turn your body, you see. So that's how you get the Jade Lady Work Shuttle. But the thing is, we start this, then we have to turn. Then we have to turn. Because in Strum the Lute, your body is not facing square. It's actually twisted 45 degrees before you become square in the rounded position. So here, you have to be square here, then you're back to vertical, and then you turn to here. Now your body's taking this position to here, just like you would do Strum the Lute. So that becomes the shoulder turn, which is really your waist turn, or the lower lumbar area turning. So the fact that we have a lot of problems here is because we don't use those muscles the way we're supposed to. So just doing planking, sit-ups, and so forth does strengthen the body, but it doesn't allow mobility. So, we have to have a combination of both. If you're doing a lot of ab work, you have to do a lot of turning. It's just like doing a lot of strength work. You have to do a lot of stretching, because the conflict in movement is the releasing of the tension in the joint. It's not just relaxing the mind. You have to release the tension in the joints, because that's what we have to mobilize in order to move. So a stiff joint would be this. So how do you get to this? You relax the joint, right? But while we're in transition, it's very hard to fold and release the joint, because most of the movements, when we first see them, are out here. So it will look like this, because we haven't loosened this. But we see that it's still doing this. If we release the elbow, then it becomes this. Then it becomes this. Then it becomes this. So that relationship now becomes your wrist, your elbow, and your shoulder. So those three components, those three joints, are working in conjunction with these two. So that's the right-left relationship. And then you have the three joints that are here, that are working with these three joints here. And then you have the integration of the joints that have to be moving sequentially. So that's really a process. But if you just look at the hands, you never see the body. If you look at the legs, you'll never see the body. You see the body, you don't look at the legs. So that's why it's so difficult to learn, because we only can pick up on a conscious level only bits and pieces until the body goes through the transformation. And what is that transformation? When the movements become innate in your subconscious. So anyone that does martial arts or has been doing it for decades will know that until movements enter subconscious behavior, it can't become reflex. So when we're doing movements, we're not using it as a reflex action. We're using it as an intrinsic motion that's built, both internally and externally, to build a consciousness of learning. You have to be able to reach that level before you can actually think about something else. So last week we talked about brush knee, right? Okay, so that's theory, that's principles. We go over those several times in classes. So did anybody have any trouble with those drills? You can fumble around with them, and then when we go through it again, you'll pick up, different things with them. But if we spend the whole class doing the drills, that could be another session. So let's do the long form, and I'll point out a couple of things in that. All right, ready? So we always start off the form. The first section of the long form really goes all the way to the first set of cloud hands. The breakup in the long form that's different from the Tai Chi Paradigm are the obliques, and a second set of raised, step up and raise the hand. And then most of it is the same. You don't really have any new postures that are in the first section. That's different from the Tai Chi Paradigm. Okay, ready? Preparation? So here's your obliques. We're finishing up the obliques. This takes us to fist under elbow to repulse the monkey. Just carry tiger to the mountain. Then this repeats. Diagonal flying, step up and raise the hand. Bend from the waist, stork flaps wings. Same transition to the first time you did brush knee, but we're only going to do it once. Tie that together to insert needle. Step up to fan through the back. Turn, parry and punch. Retreat, step back, divert, block and punch. Step up, grasp the sparrow's tail. And you begin, after the single whip, your first set of cloud hands. So that's your first section of the form. Hold the ball, shift, and here's your first grouping of movements. So there's 3 groups in every set of cloud hands. And hook your wrists. Here we begin the kick, so you pivot, set up your hands, high pat the horse, step up, kick, right side, set up, cross the hands, high pat the horse, flip the hands over, fold the elbows and kick. Turn. Left heel kick. Brush knee, right side push. Step up, brush knee, left side push. Sit back, step up, same procedure, setting up brush knee, but it becomes planting punch. So this planting punch is like a hammer fist, okay, on the right side. Turn, parry and punch. Step up, set up just like the first kick. High pat the horse, cross the arms, flip it over, fold. Going into beat the tiger. Go to the corner, seems like it's Jade Ladywork Shuttle, but it's beat the tiger. Same arm structure. Make a couple of fists, turn toward the mirror on the side, cross the arms, level the elbows, heel kick right, 2 punches to the ear. Left hand on top, flip it over, right hand on top, fold, parting leg or like a crescent kick, turn, flip the hands over, left hand's on top, fold the elbows, crescent kick, hammer fist to back fist, or parry and punch. Step up and form the fist, punch. Divert, block and punch. Cross the arms, leopard and tiger springs to mountain. Bring the hands down, turn to the corner, carry tiger to the mountain again. Sit back, Cross the forearms. Another set of obliques. Sit back. Grasp the sparrow's tail. So 4 movements. Grasp sparrow's tail is 4 movements. It's round out and press and push. Back to the front, single whip. Hold the ball. Reverse the ball, just like the closing movements. But we're going to turn, continue with 5 part the horse's mane. Step up. Left side, stroke down, a single part the horse's mane. We step up again. Set up right side, 2 more, part the horse's mane. And we begin Jade Lady work shuttle. There's going to be 4 of them, the 4 corners. Left side Jade Lady work shuttle. Turn and transition around. Is all happening on that same front side. This is your right Jade Lady work shuttle. Part the horse's mane. Then we cross to the back 2 corners. And we go forward, back, turn. There's your left Jade Lady. Hold and make your transition, but go through the process that we just did, where you go in low hoop to vertical, Jade Lady work shuttle, and then we're going to finish that with grasp the sparrow's tail right side. In fact, all the grasp the sparrow's tails are only on the right side. We turn back to the front, the single whip, second set of cloud hands. We have a little bit of a shift and a jog here. 1, 2, 3. So that last section was the second section. Takes us all the way to the second cloud hands. And then we begin downward posture movements. So we're essentially in the second half of the form when you're thrusting out, pull down, step up, golden cockerel begins. There's a right, there's a left, and you're back to center, and you begin repulse the monkey. So this is actually repeating the sequence. So the third section is really repeating what we already did after repulse the monkey. Then we carry tiger to the mountain again. Open the stance. Hold the ball. Shift. Diagonal flying. Step up. Press forward. Raise the hand again. Bend from the waist. Stork flaps wings. And we turn. Brush knee. And push. This is your second insert needle. So this is where that sequence just repeats itself. Step forward, fan through the back. Seems like we've been here before, so it's parry and punch. Only difference now is we step forward to form the fist and punch. Divert, block, and punch. Now we step up and grasp the sparrow's tail. And we're at single whip. Third set of cloud hands takes us to the 4th section of the form. And in this fourth section, this is some of the new positions. So this is palm strikes face, single lotus kick, okay, brush knee, left side starts push, go forward, punch down to crotch. Looks kind of like the parry and punch in the, what do you call it, the planting punch. Then step up, grasp the sparrow's tail. Okay, then we're back to single whip. We do the second downward posture. The clown heads are done. There's only 3 sets. We draw back, we stroke down, and we go up to a setup just like we did in Golden Cockerel, but we only cross the hands. It's called 7 stars. Retreat and ride the tiger. Left palm strikes face. 180-degree turn to the double lotus kick. Draw bow to shoot tiger. Palm strikes face again, just like right after the cloud hands, the 3rd set. And now we do a parry and punch. Palm strikes face left to high pat the horse. Step up to grasp the sparrow's tail. 1, 2, 3. Hook your wrists. Single whip. Hold the ball. Reverse and close. So even this is done twice. Okay, deep breathing. So Tai Chi, we classify it as active meditation. The activity is from moving sequentially. And then the meditation is because after you learn the form and it enters subconscious, you can go through the form without thinking about it. And you build off of that. So there is the meditative aspect. It's a no-mindedness level of thinking, which is really subconscious motion, becomes reflex. And then when you learn the form, a form is really a vehicle to house all these postures. It's like a book. You know, if you go to the old movies, the Chinese movies that have martial arts, they look at the carvings on the wall, and they're looking for the manual to teach you that. But actually, the movements came before the manual. They traced them on the walls just to try to remember them. But that was before paper. But once they had paper, you put it into a book form. But when you learn it from a book, you can't see it, or you have to imagine it. So that's really just to house the text and the pictorials, so that you could see kind of what you're supposed to be doing. So that's sort of like, the advantage we have today is you can learn from video. So video, you see movement, but the difficulty with video, it's 2-dimensional, and you can't really see the nuances because it's 2-dimensional, so you can't see the multi-dimensional actions in the total body. So that's why, live learning is actually a bit more important when you get to a higher level. And then the other thing is sensitivity and feeling can't be expressed on film the same way. Actors try to do it, try to make you feel like you're there. The sound and so forth, the music actually play into that. But when you're doing something like a martial art, if you don't have the physical interaction, you can't really develop the feeling and the weighing and unweighing of what that feels like as far as strength. You don't know what you're dealing with because you can't experience it, because you can't touch it. But once you interact with a force, then you really start to react and respond. So that's a different level of learning, because now you brought in external forces and another variable. So learning to use the techniques is a whole level of learning, because you have to develop sensitivity and perception, space, and distance. So that's why a lot of people don't get that same level of understanding, because that's not an interest. So Tai Chi as a health exercise, really, you don't really need that side of it, because the important thing is integration of body, increased circulation, bringing nutrients, both oxygen and nutrients to your cells in the body, and then your breath and movement become a relationship. So when we speak of right and left, internal and external is part of that relationship, because your breath and movement are driven in a coordinated fashion, but not necessarily timing just inhale and exhale with every single movement. You can't breathe like that. It has to be a function of your movement. So, and because we're not exerting strength by striking or physically pushing, like when you're doing a weight type thing or lifting, then we don't have to really always exhale on the forward movement. You could exhale on the inward movement because you're sinking. You could exhale on and inhale even on a forward movement, depending on what your level of conscious intent is. So grasp the sparrow's tail is vertical, press, this is press, roll back, and push, right? So those are four, in Tai Chi that would be called four energies or four principles and concepts. So in the vertical, it's like on guard position. Horizontal is to press, which is really to support. Roll back is to redirect, right? Could be either side, but in the form you're taking it to this side, and then the push is using the palm, or push is using palm. So those are defined in grasp the sparrow's tail, but we have that throughout the form. Anytime you round out or you press or you support is considered a pressing movement or a round out or a pung position. So you have, part the horse's mane, that's a combination of a warding off and a palm down as a press, because pushing is not always just in front of, could be a push. A press is when your hands cross generally. So if you go to 7-star, you're in a cross hand position, that would be a press. If we reverse the ball and we cross the hands, that would be a press if you intentionally press. Because a press really balances the non-supported side to the supported side to create a strength and a weakness. Okay. So then we have the push, could be down opening, and we have this push, right? And then diverting or the rollback happens in different spaces. So if we go like this, that's a diverting in the Jade Lady work shuttle. That becomes upper diverting. Pull down is a lower diverting. Grasp the sparrow's tail is lower to the waist one. And then we divert and block is horizontal, right to left. See, so those ideas are all there. Then the other, yeah.
When you set up for, when you go into
yeah. Part the horse's mane.
Is this a rollback?
Yeah, it's a rollback. Rolling back is the term that you're rolling backwards. Diverting is the same. The word really is divert. Rolling is a name that they use, like you feel like you're going backwards. But
so I have this image when I do this of an arm coming and I grab it and pull.
yeah. So grabbing and pulling is another one of the energies. There's 8 of them. So that's called pull down or plucking. It's called plucking. The other one that requires arm is called splitting. So diagonal flying is a splitting movement. Raise the hand is a separation or splitting movement. Diverting is this. Pulling down is plucking. So when you pull, it doesn't matter whether it's down or to the side or up or vertically down, that's called plucking. And they use the analogy of pulling a fruit off a tree, like an apple. When it's hanging there, if you pull it without any exertion of speed or acceleration, the branch would usually come with it because it's attached. So plucking is pulling it suddenly so that it snaps it. So when you roll back and you pull like that, that's a disruption. So on the functional side, that's what you're really creating. So that's called pull down. And then there's the last two are elbow. Right? That's an elbow stroke. Then you have your shoulder, which is a shoulder stroke. So those are just parts of your body that you use as, you know, weapons, I would say, you know. So if your elbow, like when we close the form, we have an elbow, right? When the hands come like this, you have an elbow, right? You have a slice. When you turn and you lead with the shoulder and you go to part the horse's mane, that's a shoulder stroke. So all of those are directions of forces. And when you apply a movement, everything is directional, everything is forces. Now, like I said before, that it's not necessary to learn this type of action to use it, but you have to understand the action to define the direction of movement and to know that the arm has to go in this direction. Because the conscious intent of the movement really works with surfaces of your body. So if you're pressing down, even though this is the press, you would think it's your hand, it's your forearm that is actually engaging, right? When you use this part like a press or a pong, you're using the forearm on the outside. So it's only functional if you actually apply it. It becomes a position, but your method of ideating whether this is being utilized or developed, the sensitivity that this is the action, then that becomes more like a mindful thing. And then when you stroke down like this, if you're pulling, it would be like this. So if you pull a rope, or if you're doing tug of war, if you're on a ship or a boat and you're pulling those, those sails down, that becomes an action. You know you can't pull it here. In fact, the functional machine, when I had that rope there, when you pull, you had to pull towards your center because there's a mechanical advantage in pulling here than to pull here. So when you're doing grassless spiral tail and you divert, you have to pass through your center and as close to the body that's practical. You can't do it like this. You have to do it like this. So it becomes a dimensional change, not just front to back, but right to left. Because when you sing, what you're doing is manipulating a skeletal structure to create the direction of that force. So throughout the form, that's what you're trying to develop, is that understanding. So, but on functionality, it's really learning to move your body so that you can get results of whatever you're trying to do. You know, whether you're swinging a hammer, even parry and punch. You know, when we stroke down, your hands have a specific order in which you maneuver and where it goes as a pattern of movement. And when you divert, block, and punch, and you go here to grasp the sparrow's tail, when you start to link your postures together, it becomes one action, right? So stepping up and grasp the sparrow's tail is really a variation of stepping back and going forward. It's footwork. And the reason for that is because as a martial art, you would have to have footwork to get to your opponent. So if you're here and you go forward, that becomes a footwork, right? So the shift, stepping, retreating, has a really agility to it, but your hands have to work together. Because if something comes, you have to step back. If you're going forward, you have to, so those are sliding steps, all part of shifting of the weight. So sliding step is when you go forward, when you step up. Those are going toward whatever you're going toward. So this gives you some insight about why the form, is so valuable to develop movement. Because typically you're not doing this with someone, you're doing it on your own. So it's self-cultivation. You have to develop your movement. It's virtual, it's not tangible. That's why it's so difficult to kind of simulate a lot of these motions. But if you do it long enough, your body actually will pick all of those ideas up. So anyways, on that, we're going to bow. Salute. So we can line up, and so do you know Bonnie? Do you know Bonnie? So yeah, this is Ed. This is Ed. He's been a couple of years doing. He was doing privates with Lucy, and then he did classes. He did an annual thing too. He was coming once a week, or then we closed down. So
Did you say your name was Adrian?
80,
Ed. Oh,
Ed.
Ed Kazarian. I recognize the name from the transaction. Okay.
So